This video is going to be about winning more gunfights in Infinite Warfare. Winning more gunfights will obviously increase your KD, you'll be going on higher streaks, it just makes the game overall better because that's the key point of the game is to kill people. So there's a lot to get into with this video, so I'm just going to get right into it, starting off with the fact that you generally don't want to fight fair fights. I know that the title and the point of this video is to help you win gunfights, but the idea would be to take as few fights as possible. If you're shooting somebody in the back, I wouldn't really call that a gunfight. If you have a huge, say you're in a head glitch or something, that's not really a fair fight. You want to not have fair fights. You want to have cover more than the enemy team. You want to have better positioning more than the enemy player. Just as much as you could do to make it to where it's not a gunfight. You stack the odds in your favor. That's what you want to do as much as possible. And that's how you're going to go on consistent streaks. The rest of this video is going to be about how you could actually win more fights. But first of all, you just want to have as few fights as possible because if there is no fight, it's already a win for you. That's the first step. Take as few fights as possible by flanking a lot, using cover a lot, and just being the first person to know about the fight will give you a distinct advantage in the fight. The next part is just going to be about aim. Aim is very important for winning gunfights, obviously, because your aim needs to be very consistent if you're actually going to win fights. A lot of times it comes down to, in Call of Duty, if you miss one bullet, you might lose the fight because of it. And if they get on target slightly faster than you, they might win because of it. So your sensitivity is very important. A lot of people like to play on a very high sensitivity because they think that because they can move it faster, they'll be getting on target faster or turning on people faster, but that isn't necessarily true. I personally play on 5 horizontal and 5 vertical, but you shouldn't copy anybody's sensitivity. You should just find something that works for you. And I think on the medium to low side is going to be the most consistent for aiming. High sensitivities do definitely have their advantages, but the fact that it's harder to control recoil and be consistent, I just think it's not worth it in my opinion. Like I said, everybody's different and sensitivity is just a comfortability thing. You have to find the right one for you, but I'd recommend something on the medium to low side. One thing I like to do to get my aim on target faster is to center my crosshair on the enemies and then hipfire, and while I'm hipfiring, transition into aiming down sights. If your crosshair is centered on them, you're going to be hitting some of your hipfire shots as you're aiming in, and this can kill people extremely quickly, especially in close range. I have another video on this that I'll link down in the description, and there will be several videos in there that I've linked that I think pertain to this topic. So if you're interested in seeing that, just check down there. Basically, just hipfire into aiming down sights. This is a very common Call of Duty concept. I think many people understand this already. The next thing is just going to be left stick aiming. This is why I like to have stock on some my assault rifles and my LMGs. Submachine guns don't necessarily need it because you can already strafe very quickly with them. But the idea is that you get your right stick on the right level. So you put your right stick at body level, for example, and then you use the left stick to actually move it left and right, and that just makes things much more precise. It's easier to be precise with the left stick when you're only moving X and Y on that, and then you're only moving left to right on your left stick, and then you're moving up and down on your right stick. So it just makes aim a little more consistent in some situations, and it can make you a harder target to hit because you're strafing. So left stick aiming is something that a lot of people rely on in Call of Duty, and I think it could definitely improve your aim and make it much more consistent if you become very good with left stick aiming. It might seem a little odd at first, but once you get used to it, I think you'll find that it's very helpful. There's some attachments that could be very helpful for winning gunfights, such as quick draw, stock, or a sight in some cases if you don't like the iron sights of a weapon. Obviously, a rifle barrel can improve your range, and that will obviously give you more damage at ranges, but that's not always needed. We're going to be focusing on quick draw and stock mainly, and this quick draw allows you to get on target faster, and then stock allows you to execute the left stick aiming, like I said. And then with sights, if a gun's iron sight is bad and you have problems aiming with them, a sight is just going to make aiming easier for you and more consistent. As far as reticles go, for some reason a lot of people like to use the largest reticle as possible, but I think keeping your reticle as small as possible is the best because that's the most precise way to aim. If your reticle is very large, it's not very precise, but if it's very small, then you know if that reticle's on, then it's hitting. So I like to go with the blue dot. If you don't have this, there are other options that are smaller, but I just think the simpler the better as far as reticles go. You also want to play to your weapon's strength. If you're using something like an ERAD, you don't want to challenge gunfights that are across the map consistently. Sure, you might win it if the other player is bad, but the ERAD strength is in close to medium range, so that's what you want to play on. Likewise, if you have an NV4, you don't want to be in the enemy's face all the time. It can work out, but the ideal place for the NV4 is a slower paced, more ranged playstyle to take advantage of its low recoil and consistent damage. So find out what your weapon's strength is, what its ideal or engagement range is, and try to play to that as much as possible, while also trying to not take fair fights as often as possible. It might seem a little odd at first to play to your weapon strength and then also play to not be taking fair fights, but once you get that mastered and you're good at keeping your engagements to the ideal distance and you're good at flanking or using cover correctly, then you'll become a much better player and your KD will go up and you'll be winning fights much more consistently. You'll be getting more streaks. Everything will be going much better for you. That's really two of the core things you want to master is playing to your weapon strength and then playing to avoid fair fights. Those two things alone will make you a much better player. These next two things are going to be about just being a hard target to hit. This is when a fight is occurring, you and the enemy are shooting back at each other, so you want to do things that make you a harder target to hit to give you a slight advantage in the fight and might tip the odds in your favor. Like I said, Call of Duty is a game where a gunfight can be decided by one person missing a bullet, so making yourself a hard target to hit can definitely give you a huge advantage in the fight. And the first thing is going to be drop shotting. Drop shotting is just when you go prone while you're shooting at somebody, and this is something that used to be done a lot in the older Call of Duties, like Call of Duty 4, World at War, and Modern Warfare 2. But it's gone away in recent years because of the advanced movement. People don't do it as much. But drop shotting is still very effective in this game, and it definitely has a place. I think in closer range fights or more confined fights where you're in like a building, for example, where if you jump you're just going to hit the ceiling and it's not going to help you that much, drop shotting can definitely be very effective there. And not only is it very good in like those ranges, but it's also less expected. A lot of people are used to shooting people that jump because of the advanced movement. People are jumping all the time. But like I said, fewer people are drop shotting and a lot of people have gone away from it. So it's just more like unexpected if you drop shot in the fight. People are used to adjusting for jumping, but not as used to adjusting for drop shotting. So drop shotting could definitely give you an advantage in fights, especially the ones I outlined where they're in like close ranges or there's something that'll deter you from jumping, like the inside of a building, for example. Jump shotting is very common in these games, but it's also a good tactic to use. Just depends on the fight. Jump shotting, drop shotting, it just depends on how the fight is occurring. If it's out in the open, jump shotting it might be more helpful than drop shotting, especially at range. I prefer jump shooting. So like if you're at a medium range, I might jump shot, but in a closer range, I'll probably drop shot. Really just depends on the engagement, and these things have to come as second nature for you if you're going to execute them in the fight. Like at first you might have to think about it, but once you're used to using jump shotting, drop shotting, all these little moves, then that's when you're going to be very good. When it comes to second nature and your brain just kind of automatically knows what it wants to do for the fight, and it's just kind of doing it on autopilot, you're going to be able to focus more on like aim and surroundings, and then like the actual fighting aspect will come as second nature. So just practice these moves as much as you can, find out what works for you, and then you'll be able to execute them as like on autopilot basically. One of the most effective ways to win gunfights in this game is to wall bounce, and this generally occurs if you're already wall running in the fight, or if there's a wall right next to you in the fight, you can jump onto it and then quickly jump off, and this gives your character like a lot of sideways movement rather quickly, but it's also just kind of awkward to shoot. A lot of people expect you to just keep wall running if you're wall running in the fight, and then if you just jump off, it's just like a very awkward thing for them to compensate for. It's a drastic like sideways maneuver that doesn't really progress you like forward at all. It's generally just like a very sideways maneuver. So wall bouncing in a fight can definitely be like super effective, and I win most of my fights where I wall bounce. It's at many different ranges too. It works at like pretty like except for like extremely long, but this works in close range and medium range because it's just a quick horizontal movement that a lot of people aren't ready for just because it's kind of uncommon. In close range with shotguns especially, sliding and shooting at people can be very effective. This is generally just mainly used for like shotguns or SMGs. Maybe the K-bar could pull it off too, but I like to stick with this to shotguns and SMGs. The gung-ho perk is very helpful for this, but basically you're just sliding in it, shooting them, and it makes you a very awkward target to hit because like I said, you're just progressing towards them very quickly, and a lot of people aren't used to that. You're used to shooting targets that either go sideways or like up, but when you just come straight at them and you're like a smaller target because you're sliding, it's very awkward to shoot at. And you're going to win a lot of your gunfights where you're sliding. I feel if it's like the correct situation where sliding would be helpful, then you're definitely going to like win that fight. Like I said earlier, you just want to practice all these moves as much as possible so that you find the correct like use of them for you, and then it happens second nature, just autopilot in the fight, and you're going to start winning so many more fights if you get very good at these moves. With the default button layout on the default controller, it can be very hard to just be jumping, sliding, dropping while shooting and like maintaining precision, all that. Generally, you have to take your thumb off the analog stick to hit one of these buttons, and the first solution to this is clawing. This is where your middle finger is on the trigger, and then your index finger is on the A, X, B, Y buttons, or the triangle, circle, square, triangle, whatever the buttons are on PlayStation. Basically, your index finger is on those, your thumb is still on the analog stick, and your middle finger is on the trigger. So your index finger does all of that. You never have to take your thumb off the analog stick, and you still can like do all the different like jumping, sliding, dropping, reloading, all that you could do without taking your thumb off the analog stick, and this is very effective. Some people find this uncomfortable and think it causes arthritis, but I've been playing like this since 2010 when Halo Reach came out, so a very long time, and I play a lot, like I play more than most people, and I've never had issues with my right hand. I've had some issues with my left hand hurting, but I've never had any issues with my right hand hurting. It's really just a person-to-person thing. I'm sure there are some people that have gotten hurt by it, but some people online tend to act like everyone who does this instantly gets hand pain, and that's not necessarily true. I think it's definitely worth trying out to see if clawing is for you. It definitely feels awkward at first, but all of these solutions I'm going to recommend do feel awkward at first, and you're going to have to adjust to them. The next thing you could do is change your button layout. If you go into the options, you could change your button layout, and the two popular options are either stick and move and then bumper jumper. I don't use either of these, so I can't really speak to the effectiveness of them. Obviously, they work. They give you the ability to jump and while maintaining control over the analog stick, I believe. So there's the advantage there, but like I said earlier with clawing takes some time to get used to, and changing your button layout will also definitely take some time getting used to, because you don't want to have to think about pressing buttons. You just want your brain to naturally do it. Like I said earlier with the different moves, you want them to become second nature, and if you're changing your button layout or you're clawing or you get a special controller, you're going to have to adjust to that. So either one of these options you pick, you're going to have to probably change something, but it's going to take some time to get used to. But once you get used to it, you're going to be a better player. You're going to have more options to do in a fight. And then the final option is to get a scuff controller or an elite controller, or whatever company makes these controllers. I'm sure there are others where you have paddles on the back, so that you can use the default button layout. You can have your thumb on the analog stick, and you can also access these buttons because they're on the back of your controller. This may seem like this is the easy way out. Generally, you just pay money and then you get that. But it does take some time to get used to. I had a scuff controller in Modern Warfare 3, but I didn't really need it, so I just went back to clawing after the paddles broke. But the paddles do take time to get used to. You're not going to get it and then instantly be able to do everything perfectly. It takes time to get used to, just like clawing does and just like changing your button layout does. So I would recommend trying to change your button layout or claw first, unless you just have a lot of money and you want to spend it on a controller, but it isn't required like a lot of people think. You can claw or you can master a new button layout. It's not impossible by any means. So that's basically it for this video. I hope you learned something useful. The first thing you want to master is aiming. You want to not have to think about aiming. You want it to come as second nature. And then you want to master these different moves like drop shotting, jump shotting, wall bouncing, sliding, all that. You want to master those so they come as second nature. And then you'll be able to focus on your game and make good decisions in the game while also making good decisions in the gunfight, because they come as second nature. Really just comes down to practice with this. The more time you put in, the faster you become acclimated to it. And if you don't have a special controller already, or you haven't changed your button layout already, or you don't already claw, you're probably going to have to start with that first and then build into these other things. So like I said, that's going to do it for this video. Check the description. There will be videos I've linked that I think are on this topic as well that could help you. So if you want more information, maybe more information about a specific topic, check the description. There'll be videos linked down there for you. Like I said again, that's it for this. Thanks for watching.